Joining me right now as we await Donald Trump, they're in Ohio, Republican strategist Ford O'Connell and Democratic strategist John Rowley. John, if you know that you're probably going to run for president of the United States, if you're actually just Secretary of State at the time, why are you allowing effectively these kinds of shenanigans to happen between the foundation, your husband, and this consulting firm?
Well, out of the 14 or 15 WikiLeaks releases, I haven't heard much shenanigans. We've heard some coulda, wouldas, and shouldas. And, I mean, frankly, there's no smoking gun that Hillary Clinton specifically has done anything wrong. In fact, if there would have been this kind of scrutiny around Dick Cheney, who was the CEO at Halliburton right before we went to Iraq, and then Halliburton made billions out of Iraq,
okay.
I mean, it would have been a totally different thing.
Which is the Clinton Foundation. You say that there's nothing there. Let me share with you one email from a senior State Department official who worked for Hillary Clinton while she was Secretary of State. And this is coming from WikiLeaks, and she's coordinating here with the Clinton Foundation folks. And she writes, need you to flag when people are friends of WJC, William Jefferson Clinton. This is Caitlin Cleverick writing to the foundation folks. At one point she says, is this an FOB, meaning friend of Bill's? If not, and this was all during the Haiti earthquake and people needed, for example, medical supplies. One woman wanted medical supplies. She asked, is this an FOB? If not, she should go to cd.org, which is the government website. So we also know that Dennis O'Brien, who is the Irish entrepreneur who runs a big cell phone company that was making lots of inroads in Haiti, he also went to the foundation, which then went to the State Department to help him specifically. So when you say there's no there, I got to push back on that. And what is your response to these seemingly big
What
conflicts?
inappropriate action did Hillary Clinton take? I mean, that is the question. I mean, anytime you're around
you don't think that's I'll get Ford in here. I mean, Ford, isn't it kind of inappropriate for the foundation to be working with the State Department on behalf of its biggest donors?
Well, absolutely. There's a lot of 501c3 foundation questions here. It's quite clear that all the talks of the good works that the Clinton Foundation does, it obviously served as a wealth-generating enterprise for Bill Clinton personally, and it allowed people to buy access to Hillary Clinton at the State Department. What everyone else is forgetting here is that a lot of people give money today for favors tomorrow. So should Hillary Clinton actually
prove it?
Wait, because she's not president yet.
Proof of it.
I'll tell you why I can't prove it, John, because the government won't investigate her and the media won't connect the dots.
Okay.
That's the bottom line. You say there's no there, but there may be.
I would point out, I mean, regardless of what kind of proof is out there, I mean, look, there's such a thing as appearance, right? And the appearance of conflict. This is the reason why a federal judge, if he or she has stock in a particular company and then suddenly has to be making a decision that would involve that company, they have to recuse themselves from the case, John, not because necessarily they would act inappropriately, but because there's a perception that they may act inappropriately. And that's, of course, the question here with Hillary Clinton. Why did she allow this to continue? Looking at a live picture. Donald Trump coming up to stage there in Springfield, Ohio. We've talked repeatedly about how important Ohio is as a state. He has a very narrow path. There's still a path, but he's got a narrow path via the Electoral College to actually get to the Oval Office. And Ohio is one that really could make or break him. You do have a pretty depressed economy there with a lot of workers that have found themselves losing jobs, in part because some of these jobs have gone to Mexico, some of them have gone to China, and this is an issue that certainly resonates there. Let's listen in right now to Donald Trump, and then I'll come back to you guys and we'll get some analysis in just a minute. So, John, they've had a very different experience, and thus they have different economic expectations, you got to admit.
No, absolutely, and that's always been the case, but I think there's a difference between her message resonating with them and millennials rejecting someone who attacks sexual assault victims. And so, I mean, you know, talking about Hillary, whether she's working hard or not in the campaign, I mean, there's an old business axiom that I think her campaign's following. If your adversary is busy hacking their own legs off, don't get in the way. And so I'm glad. But
he's not doing that lately. I mean, that's the challenge for her, as Lee just pointed out. He has gotten back on message. He's reacting less and making news more, which is the position you want to be in right before the election, John.
I'm glad he found his inside speaking voice. If he would have found that 6 to 7 months ago, he might have a better shot. But I think, I mean,
I'm sorry, what does that mean?
Well, I mean, he's talking calmer and as opposed to just being vitriolic and on the attack, but it's not going to change the fact we're talking about.
That said, I mean, just so long as you're going to bring up speaking voice, my advice to Hillary Clinton is do not forget the power of a microphone. It would help her vocal cords. As a former singer, sometimes I listen to her and I'm very concerned for her actual voice because I think it's taken its toll on her. You need to just bring it down a little bit and remember the power of the microphone. Anyway, Lee, you know, I think this is an important issue to address. Just exactly who do the economic issues sort of respond with more? I mean, is it sort of your middle class, middle age, older disenfranchised voter that's going for Donald Trump, whereas, you know, your millennial is going to say, I don't really care about that job in the factory, so I'm going to vote for Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we're seeing is that there is this crush on the middle class where people are really struggling and suffering in areas outside of cities where they were reliant on plants and manufacturing to flourish, and that's just not there anymore. And so this message is really resonating with them. On the other side, millennials, they're looking, you know, they're saddled with student debt, and it is a big issue for them. And so they're looking at it and saying, what's in it for me? And when they hear Hillary Clinton talking about this, they're saying that is something that's in it for me. And it makes sense. You can see everything that you look at is through the lens that you look at your world, and their world is just limited to that.
I don't see them being as motivated as she needs them to be right now, Ford. I mean, if she really wants to get a big turnout, how do you get these young kids, and some of them not so young, but how do you really get them excited? Is it actually freebies that's going to do the trick here?
Well, I think it's Bernie Sanders that gets him excited. Let's look back at this. He basically crushed her. Well, it is the authenticity, but he was giving away everything, including free puppies, Trish. Let's be honest here. It's not very often that you basically say, gee, a 73-year-old really gets me going. Yeah. But obviously Bernie Sanders did it, and he was extremely authentic. So, you know, but I want to go back to one point that John made. He said, gee, you know, Donald Trump just found his stride with 2 weeks to go. Well, actually, he found his stride right before the first debate, and then the Access Hollywood tape came out. What happened was Donald Trump was even with Hillary Clinton going into that first debate. The Access Hollywood tape came out. Now the WikiLeaks has brought this race back to where we were exactly 4 weeks ago, and the question's all going to come down to turnout. The one thing I will say that does scare the Hillary Clinton crowd is that the millennials, you just don't know whether or not they're going to turn out, and that is their biggest phobia.
All right, well, and the enthusiasm issue is a big one.
Enthusiasm, yes, an enthusiasm gap. So good to see all of you. We have much more to cover. I'll see you back here with the Market Up 2 after this.